All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, How to Use Visa Checkout to Increase Online Sales. My name is Kimberly Rowell. I'm from BlueSnap, and I will be moderating today. We thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day to spend some time with us. I would like to introduce our speakers, Scott Fitzgerald, who is the SVP of Marketing at BlueSnap, and Dan Macias, Senior Director, Integration and Sales Engineering at Visa.
Hi, Kim. How are you? Hey, Dan. How's it going?
Good. How are you, Scott?
Very good. Thanks.
So just a couple of quick housekeeping items. We are recording this webinar, so you'll get a recording in your email shortly when the webinar is over. We are going to be holding Q&A at the end, so feel free to submit your questions in the chat box in the GoToMeeting throughout. And then we hope to run about 20-25 minutes tops so that you can get back to your busy schedule. So with that, I will turn it over to Scott.
Thanks, Kim. All right, Dan. So looking forward to today. What I was hoping for everyone we would do is I would run through a few slides at the beginning to put in context why we think wallets are so important and so important to the strategy of our e-commerce customers, and we're really committed to it. And then we want to dig in a little to specifically how Visa Checkout's been designed and why it really is one of the great customer experiences that are available today. So I'm looking forward to going into that a little bit. And then we will, at the end, talk about what is required in terms of getting this thing up and running on your site so you can start taking advantage of the benefits. So does that sound like a plan, Dan?
Yep, that sounds great.
All right, so I'm going to race quickly. I think everyone knows that there's a lot of change in e-commerce, and whether that's things like mobile playing a big role in how people are checking out, or things like subscriptions changing the way people purchase, or issues in the B2B world that have changed the way businesses are paying. All these things are creating great opportunity to create better e-commerce experiences, and certainly the wallets and how they're capturing a lot of imagination and attention from consumers. There's a lot of good reason for that, and I want to go through a few key elements. I mean, we know it's a big market. There are two main drivers as to why this market is growing so fast. One is the massive growth in mobile and penetration of mobile commerce, and the other is the real change in the past 3-4 years and moving forward in terms of how much people are buying cross-border, and that it really is becoming a truly global e-commerce market. The next slide, I want to put it into context why we think checkout and payments are so important to your e-commerce experience, and we will tie this quickly back to the wallets. You spend a lot of time and energy on driving people to your site, a ton of time A/B testing, validating the experience that your consumers have. And our argument would be you have to think just as aggressively about what is a checkout experience like, what is that payment experience like, to make sure that your customers are getting all the way through this cycle. So on the next slide, if I dig into that a little bit more, there are problems that can crop up in the shopping or the buying experience that can cause abandonment, and a lot of these are around what gets dubbed as shopping cart abandonment. And these are more things where someone has made a choice somewhere along the way because of anything ranging from they didn't see the right color image to they're not sure about shipping and tax, that causes them to decide they don't want to purchase the product. And that's shopping cart abandonment. There's a lot that can be done. Checkout abandonment is sort of a more subtle and perhaps more sinister problem, which is they do want your product, they want to purchase, and something happens in the checkout process that prevents them from getting through, either by choice or maybe they've been blocked. So if I double click on that just a little bit, checkout abandonment really can be caused by either having too much friction in the checkout experience, and this is things like too many fields to fill out, it's complex, I'm trying to do it on a phone, and I'm fat fingering my address, and I'll abandon. It could be things like confidence, where I don't really see the trusted logos that I know should be there, or I'm not 100% sure that what I'm going to pay, what the amount I'm going to pay is. Maybe the currency doesn't match my home currency. Or it can be problems that occur actually because of a payment failure, where I've put in all the necessary information, I've hit the buy button, but because of something in the way the payments are set up, I get a false decline, and as a result, that you as a merchant lose that sale, and I as a customer have a frustrating experience and ended up abandoning. We've got ways that you can measure this entirety of this problem and look at what it is that your checkout experience is doing for your consumers in terms of either helping them through or potentially causing problems. So you can check out, we got a calculator right on our homepage, you can check it out. But I want to dig in a little bit. So, at a high level, we've explained, what checkout abandonment is and, why we obsess about it. This is the wallets in many ways, and what Visa Checkout does in particular is the perfect antidote for a lot of these issues. So, if you think about those problems around too much friction at the checkout, well, as we'll go through in a minute, the way Visa Checkout works, it eliminates all that friction. It becomes a really seamless experience for the consumer. In terms of confidence, you're giving them a way to check out where they know their information is secure, they've bought into the idea of security, and they're getting that delivered for them through the wallet, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. And then from a payments perspective, we'll talk about some of the things you may not know about Visa Checkout, which are how they're helping drive up conversion rates and drive up authorization rates by the way they've implemented the technology. So just one other key thing, if the benefits we're talking about aren't enough, you need to know that by the time 2020 comes around, consumers are going to be choosing alternative payments at a higher rate than cards. And I consider Visa Checkout an alternative payment as someone who supports merchants, even though there may well be and often is a credit card supplying the funding. The wallet experience is an alternative to the traditional 16-digit card number. And it's an alternative from a merchant perspective in terms of what you need to do to be able to accept it and process it. So we'll talk about some of those details. But so with all that, I wanted to bring you back in, and hopefully folks are starting to see why we're excited about some of these capabilities. But Dan, if you could, maybe we can start with the very basic of sort of what Visa Checkout is, in your words, coming from the Visa side.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, so in the simple words, Visa Checkout is an online checkout service from Visa that allows customers to make purchases quickly and easily from their phone, from their tablet, could be their laptop, without ever taking their credit card out of their wallet and having to manually type in their credit card information. And so like you were mentioning, at Visa, we're definitely seeing mobile commerce grow at a much higher rate compared to desktop, but conversion rates on mobile devices still lag pretty far behind. And so the objective with Visa Checkout here is to streamline the checkout experience by reducing the number of form fields that users have to fill in, removing a lot of that friction you were mentioning, and to make the payment experience easier and more convenient and more secure.
Right. So can you talk us through a little bit of, I know we've got the image on the screen here, but talk us through a little bit of how it actually works for a consumer.
Sure. Yeah, so a consumer is enrolling in a Visa Checkout account through a number of different ways. One of the primary ways is you might have seen Visa Checkout on your online banking site where they can create an account. When they're creating an account with Visa Checkout through online banking, they're adding in their credit card information, their billing address, and their shipping address. And that could be one or more cards and one or more addresses to use later down the line. Then when they're visiting a merchant site and they're shopping and they see Visa Checkout, they're able to click or tap on the Visa Checkout button. They'll be asked to authenticate themselves using the password that they had set up when they signed up for the Visa Checkout account. Or if this happens to be on a mobile device in an app, it can leverage the phone's biometrics. So this could be as easy as a thumbprint on the phone. So once they authenticate themselves, they're selecting from one of the several cards and one of the several addresses that they would have on file with Visa Checkout. And then that data gets encrypted, packaged up, sent back to the merchant or their merchant platform in this case. It's sent securely. That data gets encrypted on the merchant or the platform side, and then that payment information is processed just like a regular credit card would be. So it's all the same information that a user would have typed into a credit card form had they gone through the traditional checkout path.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about this experience is certainly it meets the bar on the frictionless side, right? Where it's a simple one. I just got to type in either use my thumb or at worst type in a single password, and now all my information is transferred. But as a merchant or supporting merchants, I also love that you really are certain about the address and the information getting typed in. If someone's having to manually type something on a phone, sometimes they won't type in their full address correctly. Sometimes the shipping information can get messed up, and then you get into costly returns or costly deliveries that go the wrong way. And so this really, in addition to being a great experience for the consumer, really is a much more solid order from the merchant's perspective. So talking about the merchants, Dan, can talk a little bit about some of the benefits that you guys feel, and I think we agree that really help the merchant here and the consumer experience as to why you would add Visa Checkout.
Yeah, sure. So the benefits really are driving increased volume of users and driving conversion of those users on the site. And so talking about why consumers are choosing to use Visa Checkout when they go to merchant site. First is on the screen I see access to exclusive offers and deals. You've probably noticed that Visa is putting a pretty significant investment behind our digital products, including Visa Checkout. A lot of those commercials out there with Morgan Freeman's voice, talking about Visa Checkout, pushing some exclusive, deals and offers out there from cardholders, issuers, to really try to engage more users into using this product. Once they try it out, we're seeing really good benefits and results from users who are using Visa Checkout. So, the first thing we talked about is removing that friction, making paying online easier. Nobody likes filling out those forms. And at Visa, we really talk about how do we make using a credit card as easy as a swipe in the physical world? Like, how do we really get this down to as simple as swiping your credit card? On the online world, it's not that easy. So we're putting a lot of investment into making Visa Checkout accomplish that. There are a couple other points. We trying to make it easy and convenient with consumers to use whichever card they have in their wallet. So this is open to all major brands, and it's really a mobile-first design, that's been engineered. So it's a responsive design. It's built from mobile on up, and we're focused on improving conversion, reducing the friction on whatever device a user might be shopping with.
Right, and so conversion is something that's really important to us. That's how we sort of judge our success or not for our merchants. Can you talk about what you guys have seen in terms of Visa Checkout's effect on conversions?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've run some studies with independent vendors, and so you see some of the stats here on the screen. The big one that's really our bread and butter here is increasing conversion, and you can see comparing Visa Checkout against just a traditional checkout, a user entering in a credit card following form fields, is that we got 86% conversion rate. And so that represents a conversion rate that's higher than traditional checkout and higher than other alternative forms of checkout.
Right.
In addition, we're just seeing that consumers are frequently shopping using Visa Checkout. So we see Visa Checkout users, these are high value customers. They're checking out at a higher rate, and then we're also seeing kind of a knock-on effect. They're just shopping more. I think as it gets more convenient, as it gets easier to shop, you see higher conversion. You also just see a higher volume as well.
Right. And so I had a question too about what is the fraud? How does fraud play in? I know fraud's a big concern for us when we're supporting our merchants. Is there a benefit from a fraud perspective when Visa checkout's being used?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd say our primary goal: remove the friction, make it easy for users. Right there, lockstep with that goal is to make it secure and safe for our cardholders to shop online. And so there's a lot of, this isn't obvious to a consumer, but it's a lot of, maybe it's obvious to a fraudster because they run into it. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of mechanics, a lot of technology that is fighting fraudulent behavior through Visa checkout. So there's device fingerprinting. We're looking at IP addresses, geolocation, and this gets paired up with just Visa's proprietary risk and fraud models internal to Visa to drive risk models that try to reduce fraud before they ever would reach a merchant site. So really blocking that up front through Visa checkout. And we do have statistics that we look at now that show there's actually 63% lower chargeback rates due to fraud compared to a traditional checkout.
Okay, well that's big. That's very meaningful. that number is a big deal. So I know you said that folks are really starting to show that they're more active online shoppers. The folks that are enrolling in Visa checkout are showing that early. So obviously there's a lot of different payment methods that are available, right? That as a merchant, you could consider adding. What are some of the main reasons you feel like Visa checkout is really a great option for merchants for them to add to their site? What makes it better than other options?
Yeah, it's when you look at Visa checkout compared to other options, other alternative payment methods, really what I think differentiates Visa from others is some of the partnerships that we have with Visa throughout the industry with our issuers across different e-commerce partners to drive an overall experience. When you look at a Visa cardholder experience, you're really not just looking at necessarily the button that they're clicking on the site, but you're looking at what's their overall experience from their issuer on through to checkout and afterwards. And the partnerships that we have with our issuers, the partners that we have throughout the e-commerce industry, are looking to drive offers and an experience across these different industry verticals that provide the best-in-class experience for a Visa checkout user.
Yeah, cool. And so, last week I know we were pulling these together. We added a slide here about an announcement last week that I think really drives home the possibilities of what Visa checkout can do for a merchant. Do you want to talk a little bit about the open platform and what this announcement about Android Pay signals to the market?
Yeah, you bet. And so I was just talking about our partnerships with out there in the e-commerce industry. So one of those, and not many people realize that with all the tap and pay solution, the mobile wallets out there like Android Pay, that's really riding on Visa technology behind the scenes. And so we're now using these partnerships that we have with companies like Google to further push the envelope on really a streamlined and best-in-class user experience for our cardholders. And so the announcement with Apple Pay and the Visa Checkout Open Platform is about we are opening up Visa Checkout to our partners that are participating in with our Visa digital enablement program like Google, so that if you are a Android Pay user and you're on a website that offers Visa Checkout, you can use Visa Checkout to complete the purchase, but instead of authenticating yourself using your Visa Checkout username and password, or you might not even have a Visa Checkout username or password at that time, we're opening it up for you to allow to be able to authenticate yourself using your Android Pay credentials. And so that's typically a thumbprint or a passcode that you would use on the device. At that point, the experience of checking out is just as streamlined, just as convenient as Visa Checkout, but it's leveraging our partners as a way to further reduce the friction, further simplify the checkout experience.
Yeah. And so what I loved about this announcement, sort of thinking of it from the merchant lens, is now I've got a way, if I add Visa Checkout to my site, I'm effectively adding Visa Checkout and Android Pay and other future wallets that you'll partner with through that open platform. So I think that's a really powerful capability, and maybe more important, it just signals this opportunity for getting to that frictionless checkout experience, which is really the goal of a lot of certainly ours and a lot of our merchants.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
So that's great. So I wanted to, in the last couple of minutes, just validate for everybody how BlueSnap enables this, and it is really simple. Our Power By platform is both our gateway and the value-added services a lot of our merchants use. It's connecting through our API, or indeed using our hosted checkout pages gets you access to global payments and multiple banks around the world. When we look specifically at how do we enable Visa Checkout, in many ways this is literally with a single click. From the console, you would simply want to add Visa Checkout in the same way you would add any other online payment type. If you're using our hosted checkout forms, by going in and showing, it automatically enables that on the hosted checkout page. If you've coded to us using an API, we've got real simple documentation up in our Doc Center that we can point you to build great online checkout forms that leverage all the right, right button and help you put that on the page and guidance on how to. And then the API call is very simple. So what's great is this is really embedded in our platform. It's not a separate integration. It's not a different experience either for your developers or for your consumer. It's really just adding a second or an additional payment type to your site, either using our checkout pages or an API. So there isn't much more to talk about in terms of how you enable it than that. I mean, if you need support, certainly anyone on our merchant support team can help, or drop us an email, and we'd be glad to get you in the right direction on where on the Doc Center you can find the instructions for Visa Checkout. So with that, I think we want to get into a couple of the key takeaways and then see if there were any questions that came through. I think the point from the beginning was we're trying to make sure that there's nothing about our checkout experience that's preventing consumers from paying or your shoppers from checking out. And certainly we see Visa Checkout as a great enabler of checkout experiences, particularly, although not exclusively, but particularly on mobile. For merchants, one thing we only talked about, this really doesn't change anything about your economics. It's just a better way to check out, and there isn't a whole new set of coding you have to do if you're getting this delivered by BlueSnap, because we've built it into the platform. We keep it up to date with Visa, and so the ease of setting it up can be as simple as a click or a few lines of code on your checkout page, and off you go. So with that, Dan, why don't we see if there were any questions that came in the chat box? Or
so there's a couple questions, so if anyone else has any additional questions, feel free to put them into the chat functionality now. The first one I have is for Dan. So what is the usage of Visa Checkout like among consumer merchants and issuers?
And I'll answer that in terms of how many users we have. So there's over 15 million registered Visa Checkout users, and that come either from registering on merchant sites or their issuer online banking site, or we also we also have a Visa Checkout destination site where they can come. But I think we're actually at this point over 15.5 million registered users. That's across 16 total countries that Visa Checkout's enabled, and we have Visa Checkout enabled on over 300,000 merchant sites. And in addition, when I talked about the issuer enrollment on online banking, Visa Checkout is present on over 1,000 different issuer online banking sites.
And then the next question is for Scott. So someone's asking about paying invoices online. So they're wondering, would Visa Checkout still work in that case with paying invoices online?
Yeah, that we do for some of our customers. We are really helping them get electronic payments for what has been historically maybe a B2B invoice, and historically they've been getting paid by check. Especially in the arena where you have sort of that in between B2B and B2C, B to lowercase b, we sometimes call it. We'll see adoption here, and it's really just as easy as adding cards to the payment page, which we can do. We can add Visa Checkout, and again, what's great about it is it doesn't introduce some new pricing table. Whatever your price is for cards, it's the same when a consumer uses Visa Checkout. So there's not additional fees, even though you're getting a much higher conversion rate, you're getting a better consumer experience, it's a better experience for you as a merchant, but the fees are the same as just a standard card, and so that's true whether it's invoice or online checkout.
Great. All right, and then I think we have time for one more. This should be pretty easy, I think, Dan, for you. Are there any fees associated with Visa Checkout?
Yeah, that is an easy one. Answer is no. So, the card, merchants will pay their regular merchant discount rate for processing the credit card, but there's no additional fee on top of that for using Visa Checkout.
Great.
So that's great. So I just want to encourage folks to check out in our Doc Center. If you go to our homepage and just click on Docs at the top, you can very quickly find the information about how to add Visa Checkout. If you'd like support, drop an email or give us a call in support, and we'd absolutely walk you through it. But the benefits are really big. It's a better customer experience, and I think you'll start to see a higher conversion rate, a higher return shopper rate for folks when you enable Visa Checkout. So Dan, with that, thanks very much for helping us out today, and I hope folks in the line found it useful. And
yeah, you bet.
And everyone have a good rest of their day, and if you're in the East Coast like me, go grab some lunch.
All right.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.